Hello friends, welcome back for another part of our Ultra Supreme Max difficulty run. This is pretty deep into the run, I would say. We're getting kind of close. But the biggest thing that we need before we start making a lot of progress, and as we've been talking about, is the rocket setup that I had promised in the last video, that we will definitely get set up here. So lots of stuff going on there. But first of all, if you're new here, or just want a refresher on our rules, here they are. We are choosing to play on the hardest difficulty with the hardest asteroid, the hardest seeds we could find. Lots of other restrictions here. We need to get all the achievements, a bunch of other things, so yeah. That was not the greatest introduction of our rules, but basically we're trying to make it hard on ourselves, and yeah, that's what we're up to. So, let's talk about a couple things that need to be done before we start building out the actual rocket setup. So the actual rocket setup I think is going to span from here all the way over to the wall. But first we had to take all of the territory out in space, which I have been doing in the background here for just a little while, just because it's repeating the same setup over and over. So you can kind of see the game's frozen right now because it's loading. There we go. So you can see that every so often there is another one of these setups that's basically meant to protect ourselves from meteor strikes. And then the robo-miners are here just in case something lands and starts burying stuff. Speaking of which, here's a asteroid strike about to happen right now. So these will start firing in just a second. Now one thing that I do want to take care of is I really want all of this to be as automated as possible. I don't want to have my duplicants come out here and do things if we can help it, only because it's so far away, there's so much to do, and if we can get a situation where it all takes care of itself, that would be ideal. By the way, the spacing on these, I don't think I really talked about that much. I'm leaving 17 tiles of space between each one of these, because this should be able to fit 2 rockets in between each one of them with all the extra infrastructure that we're going to need. So I'm anticipating us having, let's see, let's figure out how far over this is going to go. So 2, 4, 6, 8 rockets. And they will all be radiation rockets, and we'll probably be flying them all at the same time. This space here and this area leading into the rockets are going to be where we have all of our suits and all of our supporting infrastructure that we're going to need for the rocket setup. So that's the plan here. It looks like we're going to settle on about 8 radiation rockets, all kind of sitting between here and launching between these setups. So, because of all this stuff that can come down and leave junk behind, I really want to clean all this up, and I want to make use of this, because there's still some good stuff out here. Like, there's slime, there's algae. I can use all those things for very handy setups. So I want to set up a shipping system that can ship all this stuff back. We're getting some overload damage. Yeah, it looks like I have too many things hooked up to this right now, so we might need to set up another little power setup. So let's see. Yeah, I think I'll just set it up like right here, and we'll split these in half so that half is being powered by one or the other. But if we're going to have a shipping setup here also, it's going to take even more power. So let's start talking about the basics of what we're going to be doing here. So as stuff starts to land, it's going to land either on top of these tiles that are by the robo-miner, or in here where the meteor blaster is, or just here in the middle where there's not really much of anything. So I'm just going to set up some auto sweepers to grab this stuff. Make sure I can reach all the tiles that I need to reach with where they're placed, which looks like the plan worked out pretty well. And then I want to see between these two how far they actually extend, because I want to have enough coverage with the robo-miners, which don't quite touch each other, but to at least dig out any auto sweepers that might get stuck. So I think we can do this. Let me check that. Yeah, so if I put it like right on the edge, then that'll make sure that we have everywhere covered. Yeah. So we have everywhere covered for sweeping, and we can sweep all this debris, and I'm going to route it through this little cooling setup that we have here before dropping it off. And this is going to drop all the way down and land on some tiles right next to where our sorting setup is. So that can be loaded in here effectively and sent into this big pile of stuff. By the way, our big pile of stuff is looking about like this. We have 3.2 thousand tons in here right now, and the other one has about 1.1. So getting a lot of stuff on that central point, but I definitely want more. I'll eventually want everything in those 2 spots, just because that's very convenient for shipping. But I still need to mine everything out, and there's a lot of useless, well, kind of useless stuff. Like sand is useful, but, you know, its use diminishes over time, for sure. So yeah, I'm just going to be setting up the shipping setup here really quickly to get that finished up. And in the meantime, all of my duplicants continue to dig out here. And since that's not the most interesting thing to watch, I will probably kind of plow through all that stuff. And when we're ready to actually start building the rocket setup, or if there's any other setups somewhere else in the base that we need for support, I'll talk about those too. But that's going to be the plan, and we're going to get there. So on with setting up a shipping system, which I didn't really finish talking about all the way, but there. So if we have conveyor loaders in between all these setups, they can just ship them back and through that one line, get them cooled, and then drop them in the base. So there we go. Let's get this done. Okay, our shipping setup is done, and we've pretty much taken all the rest of the territory that we need out here, cleaned up everything else. Still have a little bit more to do out here, obviously, but our space setup is pretty much ready to start getting transitioned into something that can support our rocket area. Let's talk about the setup here really quickly, since I did just kind of gloss over it really quickly. So the shipping system is basically going to send all the debris that comes down from space through all of our cold ethanol, and it's just going to drop into a conveyor chute right here. That chute will fall all the way down to a spot that's right next to some other auto sweepers and dispensers that will eventually drop it all right here, so we have everything centralized. Since there may be some hotter or colder stuff coming through here, I'm going to start regulating this with some cooling. Especially the warmer stuff that's going to be coming through here now is going to be all this material. So all this material could have been very hot, and the water that's sitting in here is also pretty hot, just because I didn't want to use cold water for this. So I did start cooling this area a little bit. It'll take a long time to cool everything down to a spot that I am okay with. Maybe around 20 degrees Celsius or so. But yeah, so we've got that going as well. Also created a more automated algae distiller setup. So if we get any slime, it'll just get shipped over here. It'll get loaded down into a bin that is underneath some ethanol, just so the slime doesn't gas off. And that'll get turned into algae. We'll ship it back out so that we can use it for our rockets later on. So we effectively have a source of algae right now, just because whenever a slime meteor shower happens, we're going to be shipping the slime back to a central location and turning it into algae. So kind of just getting algae from space for free right now, which is pretty nice. So that's good. The other thing that's an issue with this, and I should probably talk about the power usage. So we first of all, let me show the piping, by the way. So the piping for this is just some regular pipes down on the bottom to help keep these solar panels cooled down. These solar panels shouldn't need a lot of cooling. There will just eventually be some water that will get on top of there, and sometimes some steam, depending on what type of meteor showers we have. So I'm just running a pipe that will interact with the thin layer of water that's on here. You can't see it, but it is there. There you go. A little bit on top of it, even though it's invisible. But yeah, it'll cool the solar panels that way, and then it just kind of snakes in between each one of these things to keep everything cooled down. But the other thing that we need is we need to make sure... What's overheating? Oh yeah, I need to take care of this area. This area does get very hot because I don't have a double liquid lock here. Should probably put one up or change the material here, but anyway. So yeah, the other thing that we need to think about here is when everything is allowed to turn on. So I have the meteor blasters on the opposite of everything, of all the shipping stuff. So whenever there are meteors coming down and these things are on, the shipping system is not allowed to work, just so that I'm not using so much power all at once that I start overloading all my circuits. So the power setup here is just set up to or connected to a few different transformers, so that are on a few different lines, and then they're all powering everything that they're connected to, obviously, but only half of the system is really on at a time, so that we're not wasting too much power. Still, though, when this is running, this is a lot of power that gets used up, so we are going to need to increase our hydrogen setup. And the biggest problem I'm having with hydrogen is not just how much I have, it's how much I can push through at one time. So these pipes that come in from the other asteroid, that are sending us the very cold hydrogen gas, they can only give us 1,000 grams basically per tile. So what I'm going to be doing instead is splitting that out into 4 different like containers here. And then when the system is off, this flow will then fill up containers and split it equally through 4 different levels of hydrogen generator setups. When I get this all running, we'll come back and talk about this, but that's the idea here, is I don't have enough throughput on this line to turn on all of my hydrogen generators at once. So I'm adding more generators, but that also means we need more like bandwidth for the hydrogen. So when the downtime is happening, it'll be filling up these gas reservoirs, and then when we're in uptime, one gas reservoir will effectively feed like 6 hydrogen generators. And to show that the problem isn't that we're running out of hydrogen, I've expanded the chamber and we're still growing. So there is so much hydrogen here, it is ridiculous. This setup is just busted in how it's tuned right now. But, I mean, since we're putting these ridiculous restrictions on ourselves, we might as well take advantage of some busted stuff here just to compensate. So there you go. So yeah, let me finish up the rest of this, and then we'll see it in action here in just a sec. Oh, by the way, this is right after I had stopped recording that last segment. Let's grab another duplicant. I think I'm going to take a few more in this video. I know I said we were going to take more last time, but there were like power issues, and we had to reset up our oxygen and food issues and all kinds of stuff, so we could, I think, afford to take a few more. Who do we get? Oh, this is a great duplicant. Wow. Meep, the homie. Can't cook? Great. I don't care about that. Everything else is great. Welcome. So there you go. I think we're going to probably go up to 24 or 25 within this video. I just want things to happen faster, and we're going to need a pretty big crew that just is going to be living in rockets for a little while, so I want to make sure that we don't burn all that when the time comes. Alright. Here's our monster hydrogen generation power plant. So here we go. Just need a couple more things hooked up here to actually get this started the right way. But we have now 24 hydrogen generators, all hooked up to this one smart battery, and as soon as the smart battery fills up to 95%, then they're all going to turn off. And that's when we're going to start getting the gains from having all of our system hooked up like this. So let me disconnect a couple things really quick. I think we need to do here. There we go. Then once we get it all hooked up, once the system turns off, like we don't need power anymore, then that will be when we actually start filling up these tanks and keep all the excess, and then we have a lot wider bandwidth to get all of these generators running at once, because we can't run them all at the same time with just one pipe. So that ought to do it. Once this gets fills up and turns off, that'll be good. The other thing that I've been doing is replacing a lot of the heavy watt wire with heavy conductive wire, heavy watt conductive wire, that is. Not because we need the wattage, we still have quite a bit of room on that, but because that'll help save us metal ore, because we are not very rich with metal ore, but we do have a lot of refined metals because we have all the volcanoes that we have taken. So I'm probably going to go through and make a bunch more replacements just so we have more metal ore. But the idea with this, let me disconnect a couple other things. There we go. So yeah, anywhere that I can find a little bit of savings to keep some metal ore and spend refined metal, that will be ideal, because we get metal ore we get refined metal just by having the volcanoes that we've already captured, and we have a lot of that. So yeah, here you go. Tons of gold, a lot of cobalt. Probably going to save the lead for other things. We have plenty of cobalt and gold, and that's basically free right now. So there we go. Here's our huge power setup, and it should turn off here in a second. And then we will start getting the fill on the tanks because we won't be consuming nearly as much. So yeah, all right. Big power setup that ought to help us in this next little phase. The other thing is we talked about some overheating happening here, so I did just do a double liquid lock. And I'm cooling it using some water that's coming up and being used in our blossoms, so didn't want to run a whole cooling setup down here if I didn't have to, because this will eventually stabilize and be a little bit more cool. It's also good to note that, like, wow, my frame rate is awful in this view, but it's also good to note that the base in general is quite warm, like warmer than you would really want it to be. But we're able to get away with it because the things that we need to cool are really just machinery that might overheat. or food that might not grow because it's too hot. So as long as we can keep that stuff covered, then our big base that we've got going on here can stay relatively warm from all the debris that is still left over from the like hot oasis wasteland. But as long as you cool the right things, then you're fine. So yeah, been able to survive on that for quite a while. Now we should be starting to get a little bit of buildup in our tanks as soon as we get the rest of these lines filled up. But yeah, there you go. A nice way to handle that without needing a second line of hydrogen. Okay, so big picture view. We're just going to be mining out the rest of this. And what I'm going to be doing in this section of the video is I'm going to be showing like a full time lapse of what it looks like to build out a setup like this. I did get a comment that was really interesting because I haven't done something like that before, which is literally record every minute of what's going on and then speed it up just to show how long it takes an actual build. I don't know how it's going to look because I'm imagining this is going to take quite a long time, and I'm only going to start once we get everything mined out because watching it mine out is probably not that interesting. But I wanted to experiment with something like that to see if that would be interesting to watch. So we'll be doing that here in this next section, and it'll begin as soon as we get everything cleared out so we can get started on the actual build and not just the preparation for it. Alright, let's take another one. Can't build. Oh, that's not very good. I think we already have a herald, by the way. Quick, do something clever. Gerald. That's all I got. That was not great. Hello, Gerald. Okay, let's take another duplicant. Okay. Not a bad one for this phase of the game. We don't really need artistry or more cooks or lots of ranching, stuff like that. Not a great duplicant, but also good. Also our first queen, I believe. Cool. Well, 24. Let's keep going. Okay, we are finally ready to get this started. After so much buildup and clearing all this out, it's taken forever to do. But I think we're finally ready to get this built. My plan for how to do this in the video is going to be to keep recording, but speed the footage up so you can see what the entire build looks like. And I don't know how exactly this is going to go, and I obviously haven't recorded it yet, so I don't know how it's going to be edited, but if it's too weird or too fast or something like that, then I will probably chop it up and make it a little bit better. But I'm going to try to record the entire build process of this, and then I'll talk about all the different moving parts and what the purpose is of each of them, and then we'll see it in action. So yeah, this whole area is going to start turning into a big rocket setup. So let's get started on that, but first let's take the last duplicant that we're going to take, at least for right now. Yeah, this is a good duplicant too. Lots of useful skills. Cool. I also don't think we have a Gossman, so there we go. Alright, so we are now at 25 duplicants. We should be able to feed and give oxygen for each of them. We may need some more oxygen setups, actually, because this can technically only support up to like 24. So we should probably get... No, this can actually support up to like 30, so we should be fine. Never mind. So yeah, let's start building this, and I will just kind of keep it running from here and get going. All right, here we go. Hope you enjoyed that little segment there. I couldn't do what I was originally planning because the original one was like 4 hours long. So what I think I'm going to do, I already edited it down as you could see there, but what I think I'm going to do is tomorrow, the day after this video comes out, I'm going to release that as its own video and just kind of do a long play, big long segment of this whole thing getting built if you wanted to see it unedited. If not, then I'll see you in the next episode. But yeah, I think I'm going to do that instead, so look out for that tomorrow. If you're watching it any time other than the day that this has come out, there should be a little link down in the bottom right here that we'll throw over to if you wanted to check that out. So you can watch the entire build unedited there if you want to put it on while you're studying or working or something like that. It's going to be entirely without any voice or anything like that. Just me playing, no background music or anything like that. So yeah. Anyway, let me know about your interest level and stuff like that going forward, by the way. So let's talk about this. Lots of things are in progress here, or rather, lots of things constitute this whole build. So first of all, this area is going to get very hot and very irradiated. The biggest thing that we need to be worried about is once we have rad bolts flying through here and filling these up and the rockets take off, it'll leave behind a lot of nuclear waste. And that is incredibly radioactive to the point that I really want to make sure my duplicants never walk into it again. So one thing that we need to do before we get started is delete all of the bottom layers of the ladders so that the bottom level here is a place that my duplicants will never be allowed to go. We may be able to do something with it eventually, but for the time being, I just don't want my duplicants walking in there haphazardly and taking a bunch of radiation damage and potentially, dying from taking too much. So I'm just going to delete all the ladders that lead down to the bottom, and then this little pit down here is basically going to be a place my duplicants can't ever go. And then this will slowly fill up with, I think it's nuclear fallout or nuclear waste. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's one of those two things, but it's going to be a big problem going forward. So yeah, we need to do that. All these duplicants, I need to make sure none of them get stuck. If they do, I could just rebuild one of the ladders for a second. Like, I could just build one ladder, like, right here and get it back up here, so I might need to do that. So we'll keep an eye on it. The other aspect of this is when these take off, they're going to produce a lot of heat. If I can, I'd rather just put all that heat into some steam so that we can power these steam turbines. That's going to help keep everything cool, but it'll also give us a little bit of extra power. And having a big steam area like this is pretty useful for a handful of other reasons. Like if we ever wanted to run steam rockets, for example, you might as well have a room right next to it that can pump in the steam. Okay, so we do have a duplicant that is trapped, so let's get him out of here really quick. See who comes over for that. So we have that. So big steam area down here, a whole bunch of steam turbines with the little trick to connect the heavy watt wire using a gas pump. The flames, or like the exhaust from the rockets, basically going to take up this area. It might go down a little bit further. I'm not 100% sure how far it goes down. But it'll heat up the steam quite a bit. I just need to make sure this is steam first before we start launching anything. So I am using a giant pit full of ethanol here, filled with a whole bunch of tanks to have polluted water in it, to cycle through and keep these steam turbines cool. Plus we have a few extra drops if there's anything else in the base that we need to cool. Somebody built this yet? What's taking so long? Alright, you two, get out of here. Come on. Oh. She's gonna put down her stickers before she leaves. Okay, so now we should be able to delete that ladder, and now this should be a place that no duplicants can get. So we've got that done. The other thing that's important here is I did put together some automation to basically send a green signal whenever any of these rockets need rad bolts. The other good thing with this is if we get rid of this last layer of ladders, I guess we could do 2 more. So let's do a couple more levels. That'll make sure that when the rad bolts fly, they will never hit a duplicant, because a duplicant is not physically able to be in that space. So the rad bolts will kind of just fly across here, and ideally, as soon as these ever fill up, it should stop producing, but if it does overfill, it'll just hit the wall and then fall down here, which is not that big of a deal. So, yeah, this will be the last couple of little things that we need to do. The other thing is, considering this is a place that duplicants should never go, if there's any connections to things that we might need to maintain, like for example, if we ever wanted to ship stuff down these lines, we want to make sure to have them sticking up far enough that our duplicants can still work on them from the range of the ladders, and they won't have to go down there and work on it again. Same thing with any of the automation. I want to make sure that it kind of pokes up at a point that my duplicants can work on it. This pump is going to be to eventually pump out the nuclear waste or nuclear fallout. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's one of those two things. I don't know what we're going to do with it, but just in case I ever do want to pump it out, I have it hooked up. It's not going anywhere right now, so we're not going to do much with it yet. There's also a chance this gets damaged by how hot it's going to be out here for a little bit. That's also a good point of the steam. It's like it's going to put a lot of its energy into the steam. And the steam will be cooled down by the turbines, which will generate some energy for us. But, yeah. Another thing I should mention is, because these rockets are so hot, you really want to make sure that everything that you build in its exhaust path, and really kind of around this area, as well as above it if you want any of these buildings to survive, is built out of something that won't melt because of the heat of the rocket. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. Everything in here is either tungsten, steel, obsidian, something like that that will not get melted. Let's start turning on our system to fill up these rockets. I want to check on something too, by the way. Here we go. About 2,000 a cycle. Again, this is incredibly fast. Let's watch these rad bolts kind of fly up here. There we go. And straight into the engine. So one thing I was seeing, I have seen this before, is this automation doesn't seem like it works correctly. The signal is supposed to turn green when rad bolt storage is full, but I have seen it be full and not send a green signal, so we may need to manage this manually. And by the way, our setup is so strong here, we've already filled up a rocket almost a quarter of the way in just a few seconds. So yeah, this is very, very fast. So we'll just keep an eye on this and see if it does respond properly, but that's going to be the idea. We're basically just getting rocket fuel for free by running this. I guess we are spending power to run these things, but that's about it, so we should be totally fine. To get in here, they're going to need suits. Our suit bank is gigantic, so here you go. This is just so we can have all of our duplicants helping out all at once if we need to. Then a double liquid lock with the ladder in the middle. This area in the middle is entirely a vacuum, because I want it to connect down to the steam area as well, so that I can get in there and maintain stuff if I need to, without needing to crack it open. So I'm also using oil for these areas, just because oil will not boil until extremely high temperatures. So I really wanted to use that because it can absorb a lot, and it takes a lot in order to boil it in the first place. So yeah. Let's take a look at the piping here. The piping is just circulating some polluted water through all of the rooms that are going to need some cooling on them, so there you go. There's also some cooling on this, which is a joint plate. This joint plate is made out of plastic, so it will melt at a relatively low temperature, and that's why I have all these doors and stuff here, to hopefully minimize the flow and kind of encourage as much temperature exchange with stuff around it as possible, and connect it down into the steam. This will also be very difficult to heat, and I'm also running cooling through it as well, so I think between the cooling and all this stuff, it should really help out. This is just on a timer sensor, so that if any fallout or whatever it is lands on top of this area, I can just have it fall down to the bottom here and get it out of the way. The timer sensor is really just going to open like once a day for about 15 seconds, so there you go. We're almost filled up. The next couple rad bolts that come out should fill this up. There we go. And it's continuing to fly through the other one. Did it turn off? Yes. Okay, cool. So, it looks like this is behaving correctly. I don't know why it wasn't in my testing a little bit earlier, but it looks like it's doing what it's supposed to do. The other thing, too, is I want to connect this up to an AND gate, because this is going to send a green signal if there's actually a rocket here. If there's not a rocket here, then I don't want this system to turn on and just be wasting rad bolts, so there we go. We've got that done. Let's see, you've got a big cooling setup down here, which we've seen several times. Got our steam area, got our suits, our rocket area. And then, of course, up here, I took off the ceiling so that all the gas is free to just escape out here. It's going to take us a little bit to fill up these rockets, and I want to launch them all together. But let's start talking about what these rockets are going to be for. So, first of all, if we look at our star map, we can really only see a few areas. These rockets are going to double as two different things. One is obviously for mining, so we have them outfitted with a drill cone and some diamond loaded in there. And then we also have this cargo bay. This cargo bay is not the big one because, oh no, did I forget this? I did. I need to get down here and connect up these lines. I want to make sure that these are all connected so that I have power that is being stored and shared with the rest of the grid while these are here. So I'm going to need to rebuild these ladders and get duplicants down there really quickly. I knew I was going to forget something. Okay, yeah, we'll get duplicants down there to fix that really quickly. But what we are going to do with these is both go out to mine, but also explore the map. So on the interior of this, we're going to build a setup that has a few different things. One, there's an achievement for having your duplicants at a good morale for a long time while they're out in space. So let's check to see what that is. Wait, we got an achievement? What is this? Oh, okay, that makes sense. Our rad bolts are now flying, so we got the Radical Trip achievement. Alright, cool. So we've got that, but what I was talking about first was there is an achievement to have your duplicants be very happy out in space for quite a while. Morale high ground. Here you go. Basically, they're going to need to be at least 25 morale for 10 cycles. So the interior of our rocket is going to need to have a handful of things to help our duplicant get as much morale as possible while they're out there. And we will also have them take the berry sludge with them, which ought to give them a decent amount. So I don't really have this planned out quite yet or optimized quite yet. Let me just play around with this a little bit. I'll kind of do the same thing that we just did. I'll edit it all together in terms of like what's being built so you can kind of see what's happening, and then I'll explain the build, and then hopefully everything will be filled up and we can launch these things. So let me get started on that. Okay, there we go. That was an adventure to try to figure this out, but I think we got it. So this setup is designed to get as much morale as possible while also still having a telescope in here. So we have a washroom, we have a great hall, and we have a barracks. Luxury barracks, that is. So those alone is already, what, 10 morale, and we need to maintain 25. I think between like giving them the skills that they like, better food quality, all the decor that we have crammed in here, I think we should be able to maintain this. Let me talk about this setup because it is a little bit unusual, and it looks kind of chaotic at first, so we'll talk through it here really fast. Obviously, luxury barracks, the requirements is a comfy bed and a decor item. So this was the tightest I could possibly get it. Also needs to be 12 tiles. It's also awkwardly offset because the washroom also needs to be 12 tiles, and the Great Hall needs 32 tiles, and I could just barely get all these things in here that way. You probably could do this a little bit less awkward if you had a ladder here instead of a plastic tile. But I want the plastic tile over the top of places that my duplicants are going to be spending a lot of time. So my duplicants will be spending a lot of time at the telescope. They'll be talking on the phone, which is ringing right now, and nobody's answering it. It's very stressful. They'll spend time eating. The only thing that's not very well covered from radiation is the bathroom. So I might put them on extra bathroom breaks while they're out here, just to get rid of the radiation that they have. The setup here also needs these oxygen diffusers and the mini gas pump behind doors so that they are not considered an industrial piece of machinery that will ruin these rooms. So yeah, there you go with those two. The top one, this oxygen diffuser, obviously my duplicant is going to need oxygen while they're out there, so just going to be dropping some algae inside here, and they're going to use that to live out in the rocket for a while. And then this is to get rid of the carbon dioxide buildup. The one little thing I don't like that much about this is there's not like a nice, elegant way to make sure that we are getting rid of any gases that are in here that we don't want. Usually it'd have like a element sensor to detect what element is around us and then send it out of the mini gas pump if it's not something that we wanted. We could probably also do some filtration with this if we really wanted to squeeze it in here, but I don't really care that much. You could probably put some filtration right here to make sure that you're not getting rid of gases that you might still want to keep, like some oxygen or whatever, but I guess I don't really care. I'd rather have the decor, honestly. So I'm just going to put it on a timer sensor. This is not real tuning. We'll probably do it like 20 seconds on and 200 off or something like that. We'll have to just kind of dial it in and make sure our duplicant isn't getting disrupted from not being able to breathe if they're sleeping and working down here or something like that. So yeah, this is kind of what it looks like. Interesting setup for sure, and also to note that the rocket control station and the telescope do not invalidate this Great Hall. They're not considered industrial machinery, so yeah, looks like we've got everything set up here. Oh, the other thing that I forgot to mention, and you probably saw a lot in the video, what happened, or rather in the previous part, a funny thing happened is I forgot to actually put the rocket control station back in here. So I had a liquid reservoir in here to hold a bunch of water, but I don't think we need that if there's only one duplicant living out here and we're not landing on any planets. So I just snaked pipes through this as much as I possibly could just to assure that we are keeping water here for our bathrooms so they're not just like making a mess in here. And also it will help keep things cool, considering we do have a couple of little heat generators. So, now that we have that, one other thing that I did fix, by the way, is if you connect up your heavy watt wire straight to the battery, then it will cause the stuff inside here to break. Or rather, it will cause our power lines to break. So, I forgot that. I forget that all the time. So I just hooked them up to a transformer so that we can make sure that these leave fully charged. The big reason you want to do this is because eventually this will all just kind of be covered in a soupy gas of mess. So that will make the solar panels stop working. So I think now that we have all these things charged up, our setup has turned off automatically because nothing needs rad bolts right now. So we can go ahead and destroy these ladders that we're leading down there, And then this will now become like a do not enter zone for sure. Okay, so that is 1 of 8 rockets. I'm just going to need to redo this about 7 more times so that all of them have pretty much the same setup. I don't see much of a reason to change this. Like I mentioned, this will slowly get oxygen out of here. So I'm going to need to tune this up, or I will, if it starts to bother me or we really start running low on algae or something, then I will probably replace these tiles right here and swap them out for something that does some filtration. Which you can do pretty easily by just some quick like gas element sensor on the pipe and a vent. I don't think either of those will invalidate the Great Hall. So if we need that, then we'll change over. But for right now, I'd really rather have the decor. Which looks great, by the way, so not too many problems going on in here. The only other slightly goofy thing is we definitely need food and algae while we're out here. So I'm going to have to pick a couple buildings to deconstruct so that I can get them in here. I probably deconstruct a telescope so I can put down a couple bins in case we need more than one thing, but I can't really think of why we would need that. So we really just need like a fridge and a bin to bring in algae when we're asking for it, so that we can have the duplicants living out there for a while. So let me build this 7 more times, and then we will launch these rockets off, and then I think that will be the end of this video, so we'll get there soon. Okay, it is time to get these rockets launched. I wanted to launch them all at the exact same time because I think it would look cool, but I don't think I can do that only because this side will have its heat put into stuff I don't really want it put into. So I think I'm going to launch them left to right, probably 2 at a time. Each of them has their pilots inside them, so there you go. They are all built out. They all have their own color to them, just so that they all feel nice and unique. So yeah. Doubles here, definitely different than regular bubbles because they have different backgrounds. That's clearly the difference between them. Alright, so they all have been scrubbed of their skills, so each of the ones in the mining rockets all have the piloting and the astronomy skills so that they can use the telescope. And yeah, we're just going to send them out to a bunch of locations on the map and just spread them out so that we can basically reveal as much of this as possible. And this is again going to be for mining, but also so that we can find the next planets that we are going to fly to. We do need to set up, I think, 5 printing pods on different colonies. I may build out full colonies on some of them, and I may not on others, just in the interest of keeping this run engaging and the interest of time and stuff like that, but we'll see. But I do need to send them out, so let's choose their destinations here. So you're going to go this way. Sure, that's a very scientifically selected way for you to go. You're going there. You are going here, I guess. You're going here. Yeah, right there. You're going here. Yup, here you go. You're going here. I guess we'll send him to the ore field. You're going here, and you, whoever you are going right here. Yes, some individuality. There you go. Alright, so let's send these off. We should just be able to hit begin launch sequence, and as soon as the pilot gets to the station, they should take off. So there goes one. Second one's going. And this is all the nuclear fallout, it is, not nuclear waste. That is going to get collected down here and continue to heat everything up. Can see it does heat up the steam and the tiles and everything a decent amount, so we'll be getting a good amount of heat from that. I also did make sure that all these duplicants have their suits off. So here's May sleeping right after the launch. Yep, definitely need your rest. There's Bubbles getting to work, looking up out in the telescope and looking for stuff. So there you go. Let's launch the rest of these really quick so we can see what a big mess this is going to be. This is also really a strain on my frame rate apparently right now because there's so much going on. But, yeah, let's launch these 2, and then hopefully we can get the steam to perpetuate all the way over to the side before we launch the last couple. And this area down here, by the way, is going to be incredibly radioactive, so I really don't want my duplicants to be down here at all, which is, again, why we made those ladders in the position that they're in, so that we don't get any problems with that. Man, my frame rate is terrible. I might invest a bunch of time in between videos just cleaning everything up so we don't get these terrible frame rates again, but Yeah, this is a little less exciting than I thought it would be because my computer is chugging so hard to get this done. But we will... I think I'm just going to clean up the map quite a bit to make this a little bit better for future use. So, sorry, game gets really big and really expensive by this point. I've been trying to limit it as much as possible. But let's get these next two launched. Come on! Come on! Launch the rocket! Apparently launching big radiation rockets is hard for computers to do. They're really not as advanced as we thought they were, but whatever. Okay, the steam is getting over here a little bit. I guess I should stop being so picky. It will also spread via these metal tiles, so fine, whatever. Let's launch the last two. There, and with those last two, we can also see how much it's affecting everything else in the area. These buildings ought to heat up just a little bit as well, but they are made out of steel. They do have their own cooling, so they should be fine. Yeah, not too bad. And also note that we have everything made out of mesh tiles as well, so that it doesn't get heat pouring into those as well. Whoops, we missed the launch, of course. That sounds like me getting distracted right when something exciting's happening. But there you go, we have our football play. Yeah, break! Everybody go out to their different spots. And we're going to be having these rockets out here for a little while. In the next video, when I come back, we'll be talking about how to deal with some of these areas, because some of them will have things that we do not want to bring back. Whether that be liquefiable stuff like ice, because that'll just make a big mess, or algae. We'll talk about those things when we are back with the next video, but yeah, this is really letting me know that, number one, this is very expensive for the simulation, but two, I really need to mine out and clean up the rest of the map. So I think I'm just going to be focusing on that for quite a while. Not sure exactly how long, but I will come back by the time it is time to bring these rockets back. So, yeah, alright. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back with another video here really soon. And like I mentioned, tomorrow, if you are watching this on the day that it comes out, tomorrow will be like a bonus episode where I will release the entire process of building out that rocket platform unedited. No talking, just kind of chilling with a full long build. If you want to check that out, that'll be out tomorrow. If not, I'll get the next episode out that is edited in this way out as soon as possible. It'll probably be in the next few days. I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to take to get enough content for one. So, alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you back here soon.